Greetings, I'm Steve Van Cor, and this is the Florida Public Powercast. It's a production of the Florida Municipal Electric Association, and this episode is brought to you by Danella Grid and Storm Services. To the folks at Danella Grid and Storm Services, thanks for sponsoring. We really appreciate it. Each episode, we sit down with leaders and experts from Florida's public power communities to explore issues, innovations, and the people shaping our state's energy future. Today's guest is Mike Crow from the City of Tallahassee, and he's going to crow, because I prompted him. He's actually a pretty humble guy, but I prompted him because he's going to crow a little bit about taking home the most brass at the recent lineman competition. But beyond that, we get into some pretty serious stuff about his lessons learned regarding mutual aid and other factors, how to prepare for the unexpected storms. We talk a lot about how to prepare for hurricanes, and Mike and I get into that a little bit too. But tornadoes are often a little bit of a different beast, and we talk a little bit about the preparation necessary to recover quickly from a micro event like that, and how do you get set for a micro event like that? Great listen. Mike's a great interview. You're going to love this podcast. Greetings, I'm Steve Van Cor, and this is the Florida Public Powercast, a production of the Florida Municipal Electric Association. Each episode, we sit down with leaders and experts from Florida's public power communities to explore issues, innovations, and the people shaping our state's energy future. Well, today's guest, coming right off of the lineman competition, is Mike Crow. He's the Assistant General Manager for Power Delivery. I love that title, by the way, Mike.
It's long.
The Manager for Power Delivery. I want that on my business card. That's a cool business card.
It takes up a lot of space.
For the city, of course, of Tallahassee. First, Mike, victory lap.
Yeah, absolutely. First, Steve, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here. And just coming off the 25th Annual Lineman Competition hosted right here in Tallahassee, and our team's done very well, which, I have to say is not an unusual thing for us. We tend to do well. You can't.
Are we looking at dynasty stuff here?
I'm just saying, you had the podcast a few episodes ago. We talked about bringing home the most hardware out of any of the other 33 municipals in the state. We added to that total this last time. I think 23 times we walked across the stage, so super excited.
That's really cool.
Super excited for our guys. It's a great sense of pride. It's something that we put a lot of time and effort into and really attribute it to their desire to be the best. So.
Well, let me just talk about that, because, like in sports, notoriously there's a home field advantage.
Sure.
You get to sleep in your own bed. You get to have your own breakfast routine. What is it about Tallahassee that you guys are consistently winning this thing?
I think it's in the culture of the employees that we have. And 25 years ago, we were part of that first rodeo as well. So it's been ingrained within our organization for a long time. And it's a great sense of pride within the industry. It's a good networking opportunity. And we strive to be the best. And what I've found here is our guys just have that desire to continue to put in that hard work, continue to innovate, continue to network, and find new ways to do things in a more safe and efficient manner. And it really transcends down this past rodeo. I'm really proud of the fact that we had first, second, and third place overall on the apprentice side, which means,
you're the future.
The future is bright here in Tallahassee.
That's really cool.
That's a great sense of pride for us. We also had the first overall journeyman team 8 times out of the 25 years we've taken home that title. So super
and I
proud.
wonder too, you go, like I remember many years ago when they rebuilt Coyle-Moore at O'Campbell Stadium, and you go through and they show the Heisman trophies there. They show the Bolitnikoff Award winners, and those trophies on display immediately convey a culture of this is the level of expectation. You go to Notre Dame, you go to Michigan, and you see they have a culture, Ohio State, they have a culture of winning. That in and of itself motivates you. So I got to keep it up,
Absolutely.
And if you're one of those teams that doesn't really love to go and participate, it doesn't mean they're less efficient or less good at utilities.
Not at all.
But certainly this competition is important to our team, and we're going to make sure we win.
No, absolutely. And saying that, I have to give a shout out to the public power communities within the state of Florida, because traditionally, historically, year after year, when we go to the national levels, it's the teams out of Florida that always do the best. I mean, when I talk about competition within the state, it truly is the best of the best. So
That's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
I love it, and I love it's a competition that does actually transfer downstream to the actual work we're doing.
It does.
It's not like you guys are going out there doing spelling bees, which have no impact. This is getting everybody trained up to be the best in response.
Correct.
The weather's getting warm. All
is.
right, we're taping this in late April, and everybody knows what that means. The oceans are warming up, the Gulf is warming up, and we're looking at a double El Nino, whatever, a super El Nino. Who knows what that really will mean? Because it seems to me, Mike, that every time they predict, when they predict the number of storms, we manifest that in our heads as common citizens, which I am one. As well, how will this affect Florida?
Sure.
And more specifically, in my case, how will this affect North Florida, right? But you can never tell. So what are you guys doing right now to prepare for the upcoming hurricane season?
Yeah, so as we lead into hurricane season, I mean, it's a year-round effort, whether that be, system upgrades throughout the year, storm hardening, construction changes, meaning we've gone from putting higher class poles in the ground. If we have to replace a pole, we go to a more robust structure. Moving from a cross-arm type construction to what we call narrow profile to reduce that exposure to vegetation. So things of that nature. But leading in, specifically within April, is we start planning how we're going to execute the upcoming storm season. We review our storm plan, which is very specific. And it's important that we do that because personnel may change and different things. And our storm plan is down to it names an individual and what exactly they're responsible for. So if that individual changes or there's responsibility change, we review that storm plan and make sure that it's updated. We also host like tabletop exercises. In fact, we're doing one next week. I don't believe this episode's going to air before then, so I can go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. My son's graduating. He's a senior this year. He's got an honor cord award ceremony the day we're doing our tabletop. I'm not going to be there. I have not relayed that to my team because we have that next man up mentality. So the morning of that tabletop, my role will be done by somebody else that's their secondary role.
I love that because the real world says if your tabletop exercise assumes everybody is going to be there, everybody's going to be there on time, somebody didn't break an ankle yesterday or get sick or have a personal family emergency. I love the fact that the leader of the team is going to be out and they're going to have to act without you.
Yep, absolutely. And I have
tell me as a novice, what does a tabletop exercise look like?
So we'll get all the key players in one room. And we'll have a scenario. Essentially, we'll have a scenario that we have a Category 1 storm coming out of the Gulf. We've just entered the cone of uncertainty. It's 4 days out. What do you do? And then you kind of work down that line. 3 days out, 2 days out.
So everybody articulates what their responsibilities
are at that time in the progression. If the storm shifts, what do we do? And there's a lot of detail to that. If we talk about, let's just look at it from a mutual aid perspective. Hurricanes in the Gulf, typically a lot of the municipal utilities within the state are going to be in that cone of uncertainty, right? So if we're 4 days out, do we go ahead and pull the trigger on trying to pull in mutual aid from additional states? Because you're not going to get mutual aid from Florida. You're not going to get mutual aid from Georgia,
right,
Alabama.
If it's coming up the Gulf, you can't call down to Tampa and say, hey, guys. They're going to be like, hey, no, we were calling you.
Yeah, everybody's in a wait-and-see posture. But on the flip side of that is if we do call in mutual aid from, just say, Texas, Arkansas, some of those further states, at what point do we release that mutual aid to others in need? So if that cone shifts, I think it's equally our responsibility to ensure that we're good stewards of those mutual aid resources. So
I never thought about it. So it's kind of like the prom. If I ask person A to the prom and they say yes, they're locked in with me. Correct. And I can't wait to get somebody better. In other words, if you agree with Houston or something and then the storm turns further west, you got to let them go. But you're holding on to them in case at the last minute it turns east again.
Sure, and you always want to protect your assets here at home, and I understand that. But it's just ensuring that, we're good stewards of that mutual aid. And again, it's securing it early, but also monitoring things. And as soon as you can release those, because there's going to be others in need. Because these things, everybody's jockeying for position, not just municipals. You got co-ops, IOUs. Everybody's jockeying for that mutual aid. So once you secure it, that's good. That's a good insurance plan to have. But if that storm shifts, I also think it's equally as important for you to kind of evaluate
You know
things.
what I like, Mike, is the cooperative nature of the FMEA in this regard. I could see an arms race of locking down mutual aid folks to an aggression where you're so me mine first that Crystal River then is stuck without mutual aid because Tallahassee won't let them go, and then next time Crystal River goes, oh, we're going to get in before you. And lock down those folks. And then you have this arms race of negativity of locking down folks ahead of time. The cooperative nature means, and especially things like, we were joking about the lineman competition and all that fun stuff, but it also breeds camaraderie.
It does.
It says we're all in this together, guys. And so being kind to your neighbor, saying, okay, I'm going to let them go so that my partner in Winter Park or Jacksonville can get these resources because we probably won't need them.
Exactly.
Talk to me a little bit about, I was talking when we were preparing for the show about a comedian talking about the difference between California earthquakes and Florida hurricanes, that they don't know when an earthquake's coming. So they always have to be at the ready. They have to build to the ready. They have to stay at the ready. They have to act accordingly. And then yet the comedian was joking that, but you guys get 3, 4, 5 day warnings. And to your point is we have the cone of uncertainty. So it's really, you can over prepare, maybe under prepare if you're on the outside. But we had a series of tornadoes here in Tallahassee. What's the difference in preparation for a hurricane versus a tornado?
Yeah, so the tornadoes we had in 2024, I think it really just was a great illustration of how prepared we are and the work that we put in ahead of time and how that comes into play. And I mean that by, it was a Friday morning. Nobody really expected it. We were all going about our day. A lot of us were commuting to work. And I kind of equate it to that old boxing analogy. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yep.
Well, we got punched.
The great philosopher Mike Tyson.
We got punched in the face in the first round, right? So we come to work. It was very apparent early on that our system had sustained pretty substantial damage.
It was a double, just for those who don't know, it was 2 tornadoes, right? Came through, 3?
Yep.
And 2 of them converged, right?
They did.
Wow, which I didn't even know was possible.
And I didn't either till it happened here, right? Saw it firsthand. And you could really see that line of destruction of exactly where they went. And we experienced more broke poles than Hurricane Hermine, Irma, and Michael combined just in that one event. But I take you back to how prepared we were. On my way to the office, I was reaching out to FMEA and Amy and talking about mutual aid. We were able to get mutual aid on our system and actively working within that first day, which is a huge feat. And a lot of
Where
people,
did they come in from?
All over the state of Florida. So that's one of the upsides, if there is one, to having a tornado event here in Tallahassee.
Right. Well, we won't take that out of context.
It's localized, right? So we were able to easily secure resources close from within the state. They were on site day one, so still in the first round, right? We're punched in the face. We got mutual aid on site.
Yeah,
on
that storm
system.
came through. My stepdaughter is a teacher, and she just left her home to go to work. So she goes early, like 7:40, early to me anyway.
Sure.
And I think a tree went through and split her house in half. I think about 8:15. Yep. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right.
So you had people in town.
By lunch we had people not only in town, but in town, onboarded, and actively restoring outages the first day.
By lunch. I mean, just the drive is a couple hours. I mean,
it is.
So I don't understand this. Is it like an aircraft carrier? There's a pilot always sitting in a cockpit on the deck ready to go? I mean, so when you call like Winter Park, right? Would that be an example of somebody who
that
came
could be
in?
an example, absolutely.
Okay, they're like, okay, we got guys, we're sending them right now.
So what we do is we actually communicate directly with Amy and her staff at FMEA, and then they send out the call to other municipal utilities within the state. So what it does for me, because I have a lot going on in a storm event, I'm able to make that one point of contact with Amy, say, hey, in that particular situation, I said, secure as much mutual aid as you can. I'll tell you when to stop. So she's on the back end making those calls.
Oh, I love that.
Also, being within the industry, I mean, everybody's watching. They understand what we just went through. They saw the weather reports.
So they don't even need the call.
They don't even need the call. They're reaching out to us, and I'm saying, hey, call Amy, coordinate through Amy. She'll get lists. We'll get people coming up as soon as they can leave. Some people can leave that day. Some people can't leave until the next day. But it's like, let's bring them in waves. It helps us that way because it allows us the opportunity to, again, get them on our system, get them onboarded, familiar with our system. But also, there's a whole back end to bringing in mutual aid. You have to house them. You have to feed them. You have to do laundry. There's a number of things that, in my mind, is almost more complex than securing the mutual aid.
Oh, yeah, the logistics of where they're going to, especially in a hurricane when everybody is leaving their home, staying in the Hampton Inns and the Hyatts or whatever, you're having to find room and board. I think it was one of our other podcasts, somebody was explaining that, yeah, the parks director, their job on the tabletop exercise, because let's face it, we're not going to be having Little League games that weekend. The parks director job is to secure hotel rooms, have pre-existing contracts, whether it's H2 or whatever, to say, hey, we need to lock up 25 rooms, et cetera. But, I'm reminded about, it was a long time ago, Rick Scott was governor, and we had a hurricane, I think it was Hermine, and he brought in FP&L and said, why can't you just deploy these folks? And unfortunately, the mayor at the time wasn't schooled on how mutual aid really works. Sure. So talk to me a little bit about, they can't just drive in a truck and start working, right?
Correct.
They have to know our system. They have to be, because one of the concerns was, and I heard this from the utility director at the time, is they had some uninitiated folks working, and they almost blew a guy off a line, was his word, not mine, meaning
absolutely.
They were about to hook up a live wire when somebody was on another wire. What pre-training goes into that mutual aid? Yeah,
so I think that it's pretty apparent that just the nature of what we do is inherently dangerous, but that's elevated to a whole nother level during a storm event. You have multiple crews working in a congested area, so that level of communication is key. So we run everything out of our control center. So as far as preparation goes, when we bring mutual aid, and that's one of the things that I enjoy the most out of how strong our mutual aid network is we always embed internal staff within those crews as kind of like the leader of the crew to show them around the system, get them lined out. And I can take one crew foreman, and they may be running 4 or 5 mutual aid crews, but they're getting them on their job, they're getting them set up, they're telling them, where it's fed from, where it's grounded at, what exactly they're working on. But in addition to that, we've helped each other out over the years so many times that there's a lot of folks that we bring in that are somewhat familiar with our system. So that's a huge benefit that we have. But
you just can't bring in any random dude up with a truck.
No, you cannot. And then also another thing,
even if they're a trained lineman, they have to understand
still, there's so many details to it. A trained lineman is a trained lineman, but they don't understand our system. They don't know what's energized, what's de-energized. They don't know where it's fed from. They don't know who's working elsewhere on the system. All of those things are extremely important in a restoration event.
I remember touring a rescue museum up in Nantucket this summer, and astonished how rudimentary the rescue systems were in hyper-dangerous circumstances. But the takeaway for me was in the entire 12-year existence of this kind of makeshift group, not one person died.
Wow.
And what I'm impressed with, how dangerous your job is, your lineman's job is, the people working on it is, and the safety protocols clearly work.
Yep.
Because as far as I can know, there's not been any serious accidents. I'm sure people have fallen and gotten hurt, got hit a limb on the side of the head or whatever, but those safety exercises must really, translate upstream.
It's the core of what we do on a daily basis, and that translates over into storm restoration. It's the same thing. What I've noticed, too, is there's a heightened sense of awareness during a storm restoration event. So everybody's kind of on their P's and Q's and making sure that we're going above and beyond to take those safety precautions, because there's so many unknowns. There's generator feedback, for example, right? Let's say a decade ago within the industry, not many homeowners had generators. Nowadays, everybody has a generator. Not every generator's hooked up by a licensed electrician. There's a lot of backfeed on the line. The way a transformer...
What do you mean, but what's backfeed?
So the way a transformer works essentially is a transformer takes high voltage, it steps it down to low voltage for the household, but it also works in reverse. If you feed it with low voltage, it's going to feed out the high side and high voltage. So if you have that generator hooked up and it's backfeeding on our system, it's coming through their service, through that transformer, and back out on that line energized, just like it was if we powered it from a substation.
So you might think it's a dead line, but somebody's got
It could be laying on the ground and it could be on fire.
And is there an equivalent of a backflow valve? I know for like my sprinkler system, there's a backflow valve, so my sewage doesn't work its way into the
Correct. If you install a generator correctly, there's a disconnect switch. So basically, it isolates them from the system completely.
But if it's installed
incorrectly. If it's installed incorrectly, then it does not do that, and that's a very common occurrence nowadays.
Really?
It is.
And is that dangerous to just shock somebody, or could it kill them?
Oh, it absolutely could kill them. Yeah, you're talking about high voltage. So that's why we make sure that anytime we work on anything, just because it's it's on the ground does not mean it's de-energized. We have to test it, ground it, get open air on each side.
Okay, so the process, you're going to assume they're all energized until they're proven not to be.
You always do that, yes, sir.
That was really, it's perfect, Mike, because it led into my next question, which is, you've been doing this now how long?
20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
Despite your youthful good looks.
I hear you.
What's changed in that time? Because, you just talk about the advent of more and more generators and the problems, potential. Obviously, it's helpful because that's fewer people that are going to be complaining and saying, get me hooked up, get me hooked up. They're okay, at least in the short term. We've gone digital on a lot of these things. What are some of the things that have changed? What challenges have they presented?
So I would say the biggest thing really is, over the years, is the communication aspect of it. We've kind of incorporated that into the restoration process, meaning there's a need for that communication piece for the public. They want to know. And really, today, there's no excuse for them not to know. We have numerous channels of communication. And what we've found over the years is just that desire for more and more information in a timely manner. So what I mean by that is, let's go back to the first response I can really think of here that I was a part of was Tropical Storm Faye back in 2008. Social media reporting really wasn't a thing that we incorporated. Now our crews are actively working with our comms department. We're taking pictures, we're updating the public on what exactly is going on in the field real time. I mean, it's a part of our process. And so I think that's one of the things that's changed for the better, honestly, because again, what I found here locally is that people understand the fact that we're out there and we're working hard. They just kind of want to know and see what we're doing.
No, we talk a lot about communications. You're right. We have a wide choice of variety. Seemingly everybody is on some form of social media, whether it's Nextdoor, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, blah, 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 blah. And also you have text service.
Yep. You
have email service. And the other beauty is, even if my electricity is out, I still may receive Wi-Fi through one of multiple services. And if I'm on the satellite systems, which are growing, Satlink is growing every day, you use these multiple channels to continue to. I know for me, when we have an outage, the first thing I do, I go to the city's website and go to the outage page.
And look.
And the nice thing about that is it'll indicate on there. And if anybody listening, you don't have this system, rush to your nearest store and buy it, okay? Because you're right, Mike. If I know that the city is aware of my outage, then that's one less call you guys are going to get from an angry customer or even a questioning customer, right? Saying, hey, because it says right there, we know about these outages. And of course, because it's all digitized. Yep. But we need that built-in redundancy. I want to hear that right? And then this way you can see the progress that's being made. I mean, it updates number of outages. 12,000 people are out. You go an hour later, 8,000 people are out, et cetera. So that communication, is, I think, essential. And you're right. We've now have so many channels to communicate on. By the way, and keep in mind this, I read the study that said people don't believe something unless and until they've seen it on 2 different channels. You get something on your Twitter feed, you're like, oh, that's interesting, but it's also on Facebook. Yeah. Now it's real.
Now it's real.
It's actually happened. Confirmed. So don't be afraid if you're communicating with your public. Don't be afraid to be redundant. I don't think you can over-communicate.
No, I would agree. And I think also being aware of how that communication needs to shift throughout the storm, right? So we have that pre-storm communication, kind of getting that public engagement and education, what to expect, how to prepare, kind of during the storm event, what's going on, what to expect, updating those numbers like you see. We enjoy seeing it. Communication and that updating on social media is for the general public, but our internal crews watch that. I can tell you each day they'll come in and say, look, our outage numbers I know that this circuit's back on, these numbers should be lower than this. So they're checking these same things, and it's providing that level of motivation to them as well because they want to do a good job.
This so tracks with the competition. I mean, if you have a competitive spirit, one of the complaints people generally have about government is also the same complaint I would have about any large corporation. It tends to moderate entrepreneurialness. It tends to moderate competition. because, you become systematized,
Sure.
right? But, when you we started with the lineman competition, creates an environment of let's go kick the other guy's butts, right?
yeah.
So now you also have the how quickly can we get everything restored? If that means I spend a couple of extra hours after a 12-hour shift and go, I want to, because I'm competitive, that kind of literally feeds into it.
We shift during a restoration event. We shift, obviously we're 24/7 operations, but we run 16-hour shifts. We have to force crews to go home at 16 hours because we know it could be a prolonged event. You don't want to have to do that for weeks on end. But
well, then it goes back to the safety issue.
It goes back to safety, but just the desire to increase the speed of the restoration is just, it's industry wide. It's not just unique to Tallahassee. I would say in this utility space, the employees that we recruit and that we have in the line worker community, they just have that desire within them to do that.
Mike, I'm so proud of the hard work you guys do. I was walking through my neighborhood the other day, and a really nice neighborhood. We were talking, they just need to do all this because there's so much waste in government. And I looked at him and I said, where? Now, I'm sure every organization has some level. My little itty bitty company I'm sure we have some waste. And he just looked at me like I challenged him on it. And I hear stories like this, guys working 16, 20-hour days to get my service back up, doing it for me, but their own sense of pride as service. I get angry when I hear those kind of comments because I'm like, I see the look in your eye. I see those folks out there. They don't have to participate in that weekend competition, right? It's just a matter of personal pride, and then that translates into a competitive spirit downstream.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize either is when our staff comes in, they're away from their families. Oftentimes, they live, work, and play right here in the community that they serve. So oftentimes during this event, their own families without power.
I remember during COVID, you guys set up like mobile homes outside the airport for people to live in. Hello. And then one time the paper gave grief to a city manager who laid out generators and put them like at the sheriff's house, at the key leaders' homes. And people are like, how come they get power? If they're not sleeping in their own bed, if they're not able to take care of it, because if it's my family, listen, I love my city, I love my community, but I'm going to take care of my family first, okay? And here's folks sacrificing, and we're giving them power so they can go home, take a shower, get some hot food, get a good night's sleep, and get back up on that pole in dangerous conditions because it's still windy and rainy a lot of times, and yet we're complaining about that.
It happens all the time, but I would say generally what I've gotten back from our community here, specifically in Tallahassee, is just an abundance of support. And I can't stress enough how far that goes because, again, like I told you about our outage numbers and our own internal employees monitoring the social channels, they see these things. They see these comments. They see all of that. And it's extremely motivating when you have folks behind you supporting what you do.
Yeah, because, there's nothing more fundamental than either turning on the faucet, flushing the toilet, or flipping on the light switch. And if it doesn't work,
there's an issue.
I always joke about, when the federal government does a shutdown, I don't like to call it a shutdown, I call it a slowdown, right? Or a partial slowdown. Okay, a national park was closed for the day. Yeah, that's terrible. I don't like it, maybe some project is put on hold. But when local government, can you imagine if local government say, hey, we came to an impasse, we're just going to shut down services for the day. If my light switch doesn't come on, I'm mad as hell and I'm not kicking that anymore. So when you talk about communications, you were talking about after the fact. What's the challenge? Because I remember Rick Scott was the hurricane governor. He did a great job, right? The guy who brought us Kevin Guthrie, right?
There you go.
The pre-storm communications, it's like this arms race of, hey, there's going to be a bad storm. That doesn't motivate people to leave. It's going to be cataclysmic. I don't even know what that word means, right? It's going to be deadly. Get out or you will die. You have to use more and more strident language, and then you can't unring that bell. So if a storm is deadly and people will die if they don't vacate, then the next time there's a Cat 3, you need them to vacate, you need them to evacuate, but you can't use a strong. What's the challenge, the give and take on some of the pre-storm language?
It's just what you mentioned is trying to convey the severity of the event or the potential impacts for the event, right? We don't know until that storm's on our system. They're so unique in how they impact us. but it's saying, hey, from prior experience, this is what we expect, and this is how you should take precaution for your family. And also teaching them how to be prepared. We do neighborhood prep meetings prior to storm season. So we go around, we host 4 different events.
I love it because you get them engaged. You get them to be part of the problem, part of the solution, not the problem.
Yeah, early. So saying, hey, make sure you have enough food, water, non-perishables, important documents, insurance documents, health insurance, homeowners insurance, things like that in a waterproof container, right? In case you experience some flooding within your home, you lose a roof, something of that nature. Just teaching them how to be prepared in the event we do experience something and how they can weather that storm if they choose not to evacuate. Also talking about services, because a lot of people, they're in a position where they might not be able to afford to evacuate.
That's what I was going to say. They say evacuate, and you always see the person or 2 or 3 on TV, and you're like, why didn't that idiot evacuate? Well, they may not have the financial means. Some people don't even have vehicles.
Yeah, so there's resources for that. So that's what we do ahead of time also, is in these neighborhood preps, talk about all the different resources available to you in the event something like this happens, how you can take advantage of those.
Anything else about the changing communication? I mean, because of that escalation of terms, what do you guys learned about how to get people to evacuate or not? I mean, or to hunker down properly?
Well, I think if you rewind back to 2024 when we experienced so many events here in Tallahassee, what we found is a lot of that was fresh in our mind, right? So a lot of the devastation we saw, particularly with the tornadoes, I mean, could we have evacuated for those? No, we didn't know about them.
Right.
But people saw firsthand what type of destruction can happen, and they got a little bit gun shy with that. So moving forward that year, just kind of rehashing, showing visual images of what a storm of that nature looks like, it really kind of drives home the point of the need to evacuate, 1, for your safety, but 2, to allow the restoration process to take place. A challenge moving forward into this year, if you think back, fortunately for us, 2025 was a calm year. And
that's the thing. If you have a calm year, you don't think there's a war, and so you're like less prepared.
You let your guard down.
When we have, those years where it's like bam, bam, bam,
Correct.
bam, you're like, okay, here it comes again.
Yeah, so moving forward to 2026, it's a whole new challenge, but it's going to be, again, just ensuring that we give those visual images, those reminders about what a storm can do to your system and your homes, and how localized and how devastating it can be, and how long.
What was funny about that storm, again, not funny, but ironic about that storm was like the week before you guys had gone through that very neighborhood and did a bunch of tree trimming.
We did.
And the neighbors were losing their minds because when you first trim out that vegetation, it doesn't look great.
Correct.
Okay, but then it grows back in and it's less dangerous. I can't imagine how bad the devastation would have been had you got, and it's one of the most heavily treed neighborhoods.
It is.
I mean, jokingly say in the world.
It may be.
Yeah.
It may be.
And yet that trimming helped a lot. But then again, I heard an expression one time, even the best swimmers drown in a tsunami.
Yes, sir.
You can do all you want to tree trim. When a tornado comes, it's gonna change things. Now, help me understand better. So the storm comes through. What's the algorithm to prioritize which systems to put back online first?
So we always start with what we call priority 1 circuits. So you're talking about police, fire, schools for shelters,
Those who help
medicals.
Yeah.
So you always prioritize off of your priority circuit. So we have priority 1, 2, and 3, and it just kind of goes down the list. So your emergency facilities first, then you move to your larger feeder circuits, feeding the most amount of customers. And then the priority 3s is you kind of trickle down and you catch some of those laterals feeding individual neighborhoods and more localized outage events than, say, a third of your city.
So you live near the hospital, you're probably going to get, and on a regular major street, you're probably going to get your power back quicker than somebody who lives on a long cul-de-sac at the end of a long road.
Yeah, a little industry insider secret. If you're looking for a house, you typically try to find it around a medical facility, a substation, or something of that nature, because usually, those would be the first places to be restored.
So, Mike, it used to be, you looked with the best school district, right, if you're going to have kids. And now with vouchers and stuff,
Yep.
That's becoming, interestingly, less important because
Sure.
you can send your kid to a private school and get the voucher, et cetera. So maybe 10 years from now, when you go to buy a home, we used to go, well, what school district is it in? Now you're like, hey, am I close to a medical facility in case there's a storm?
Yeah, I mean, that is how we have to prioritize. I mean, you have to start somewhere, and those things are essential because they're helping our citizens survive these events.
And I guess these tabletop exercises take this full circle, which is you're not going to just start attacking the transformers or the lines where the squeakiest wheel is. No, we have our priority roads. We're going to get, obviously, street lights up and running right away so that we can move traffic and emergency traffic, and then taking care of those who are going to take care of us. Like you said, medical facilities. And most of them already have generators. I remember the city went through a grant program with, you were probably there, with large, like the Publixes of the world, to say, buy a generator, we'll give you some sort of program to get that in place. So I don't have to get the Publix up. Because if Publix is without power for 4 or 5 days, they're going to lose millions of dollars of inventory that needs to be kept cold.
Correct.
So it's in their best interest as well.
It is, but a lot of times what you have to look at too is those generators. Typically, those generators are sized sometimes to feed the entire facility, but a lot of times to feed that critical infrastructure like their freezers and different things. So they still may be saving their product, but the store may not be open. So it's just kind of that balancing act. But again, we start with those priority ones.
Yeah, the store's not going to open for other reasons too. The workers are trying to recover themselves. It's not an emergency situation to go get your cereal, but eventually they want to open because it's about revenue too.
Sure. I want to kind of circle back a bit. You mentioned the squeaky wheel because that happens a lot. But I think one of the key pieces to outage restoration is having that plan in place and sticking to it under any circumstances, because you're going to have this outside influence coming in and the squeaky wheel and the repeat customer that's calling in. But again, you stick to that plan that you've had success with in the past, you've rehearsed for the future, and is effective. So it's just maintaining that course throughout the event. That's got
to be critical part of the learning. Podcast is relatively new. We were talking about online. Anything else you want to share with your colleagues that you can think of? Other than taking another victory lap on the lineman competition?
Yeah, I would say, every time we have a weather event or we go through a storm season, even last year when we didn't have any events on our system, we always do a lessons learned, and we do it in a timely manner. So right after the season ends, we do that lessons learned, and we always gather something out of it. And what we learned specifically a couple of years ago was, if you think back to the tornadoes that we mentioned, so we have that mutual aid in, things are clearing up, we're at the tail end of that restoration process. You have the urge to kind of release a lot of these crews, but we found the value of holding them on for a few extra days for all of the customers that their services were ripped off of their homes. They needed to make repairs, something of that nature, because what we've done one time is we released our crews. Our guys had worked for 5 days straight. They were tired. We had weeks worth of customer reconnects where repairs were made that we had to try to manage. So we found
those are like priority 4 on your 1, 2, 3 priority. Those are like the individual home.
Well, those are initially, but post-storm they become priority 1, because if you think about it, those customers had to make repairs on their end. There's nothing that we could do to restore power to them. But once those repairs are made, we try to immediately restore that power, because we think they've been out of power since day 1 of the event. And a lot of it's dependent upon the availability of the local electricians.
I never thought about this. So the priority 1 is impacting, obviously, safety and repair people, and then large numbers, right? And then you go to the individual. What you're saying here is, that's a depth chart. This is a width chart.
Correct.
They've been out of power since the first moment.
Yeah.
They something ripped off the side of their house. They get a construction crew out. They fix it. They're so they shift. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and so it's like, hey,
So lesson here was keep them on, keep the mutual aid guys a little longer.
Yeah, just a little bit longer.
Because the one factor people don't. I'm reading a couple of Civil War books right now, and the exhaustion. And what made Grant different was he didn't care how exhausted his troops were. He kept sending them back into battle, which turned out to be effective because the other side was exhausted. I don't think of, you just said something that spurred me, which is my folks have been out there after this tornado, which was just a micro event, air quotes, for 5 straight days working 18 hours a day. They need a couple of days to recover, minimum a couple of days to recover. And by keeping the mutual aid in longer, that's a really good lesson learned.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sure the mutual aid guys are like, yeah, I got to stay in Tallahassee now for an extra few days.
They don't. Again, it's really a selfless community. They're here to help, and they'll tell you as soon as they get here, let us know what you need, whatever that is.
Mike, that's awesome. Folks, this is Steve Van Coor. You've been listening to the Florida Public Powercast, brought to you by the Florida Municipal Electric Association, your statewide voice for public power. Mike, thank you so much for being on. It's really good.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Steve Van Coor, and you've been listening to the Florida Public Powercast, sponsored by Danella and brought to you by the Florida Municipal Electric Association, your statewide voice for public power. Thanks for joining us.